Commander Kirk Lippold, who commanded the USS Cole during the 2000 al-Qaeda terror attack in Yemen that killed 17 of our American sailors. It was the largest al-Qaeda strike that took the lives of Americans prior to 9/11. Sir, thank you very much. It's good to have you with us today. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Martha.
So give us your reaction to what you just saw today in Qatar. What does it tell you about Iranian ability to retaliate, and where do you expect it to go from here?
I think what you actually saw today, Martha, was a very calculated response on behalf of the Iranians to save face. The fact that they equate it to the number of bombs that were supposedly dropped, clearly that number is a mismatch, but nonetheless, that's what they are advertising, again, as Jennifer mentioned, for their domestic consumption to make it appear that they are responding against the great Satan and doing something. At this point, as well telegraphed as this attack was to the Qataris and to a lesser degree, even the United States, what we are seeing is calculation on behalf of the Iranians to say, okay, we've responded to the United States attack from this past weekend. Now we need to look for the off-ramp where we can work our way to the negotiating table and hopefully have those direct face-to-face talks to achieve two key objectives. Number one, to dismantle their nuclear program, and number two, give up all of the fissile material that we still don't know where it is tonight.
You know, if we continue to learn that their capability is diminished as a result of all of these attacks, and we saw even their response to the beeper attack in Lebanon was not successful against Israel. They were a bit more successful in the most recent round. And then we saw today that their efforts were deflected in Qatar. So are you concerned at this point that they will look for sort of more low-key options? And I think about what happened to the USS Cole. Obviously, the outcome of that was not low-key at all, but it was a small boat, al-Qaeda-driven explosives into the USS Cole. What are you looking for in terms of the Straits of Hormuz or other things that they might turn to?
Well, I think that's a great question. I'm going to take one quick step back in that any country that pursues to possess nuclear weapons does so because they view that as the ultimate guarantor of the government's survival. So when you look at the supreme leader, they want to ensure that they as a government, along with the IRGC, are able to survive. So at this point, the regime is looking for methods to do that. Given that we have had these large-scale attacks by the United States that were successful beyond our wildest planning operation capability, did a great job, I think at the end of the day, the Iranians now having responded are going to look for a way to preserve their ability to survive as a regime. But if we keep shutting off avenues for them to survive along with the Israelis, then I have no doubt that the Iranians will turn to asymmetric warfare and they will attempt things not only around the world against U.S. national security interests, but quite possibly here at home, especially given the number of unknown Iranians that came across the southern border. So the threat remains. Iran is still dangerous. They should be considered through that light. But at this point, we need to tell them, let's get to the negotiating table and in very short order. That should be a swift timeline on behalf of the Trump administration.
This is Vice President Vance talking about the Straits of Hormuz and the option on the table for Iran in terms of shutting it down, potentially temporarily. Watch this.
I think that would be suicidal, Kristen, for the Iranians themselves. I mean, their entire economy runs through the Strait of Hormuz. If they want to destroy their own economy and cause disruptions in the world, I think that would be their decision. But why would they do that? I don't think it makes any sense.
It is their whole economy. 740,000 barrels go from Iran to China, essentially. Obviously, they're heavily sanctioned. They have literally not much anything other than that in their economy. Would they attempt to shut down the Straits of Hormuz?
I think, Martha, that is a legitimate threat that exists out there. But Iran also knows, were they to do that, were they to disrupt the world's oil supply, that impacts not only the United States and the people that get oil from Iran, but it's all the countries in the world that rely on oil from throughout the Middle East. All those other nations, Saudi Arabia and others, would turn against Iran in a way that I think would be breathtaking. And you would have to see the strait opened. It would get opened by force, and what other military capability may even exist in the maritime domain. That's why President Trump very wisely took his time before these strikes to ensure that we had the naval assets in place to ensure that the Strait of Hormuz would remain open for the supply of oil to the world to keep the economies going. And even today, given that you're watching oil prices while rising slightly, are not near to the degree that they could.
Yeah, I mean, there's a big indication in the oil markets right now that they think that the pressure on the safety of the world is easing up. And you're seeing that reflected in the oil markets, which is remarkable given the region that we're talking about here. Commander, thank you very much. Kirk Leopold, very good to have you here today, sir.
Thank you, Martha. And that's how the world works when deterrence is properly exercised.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. We'll see you soon. Hope you'll come back soon.
President Donald Trump signed an order Monday offering a U.S. guarantee for Qatar's security, a significant commitment for the rising non-NATO Arab ally. The United States shall regard any armed attack on the territory, sovereignty, or critical infrastructure of the state of Qatar as a threat to the peace and security of the United States. The order, made public Wednesday, read in no uncertain terms. In the event of such an attack, the United States shall take all lawful and appropriate measures, including diplomatic, economic, and if necessary military, to defend the interests of the United States and of the state of Qatar, and to restore peace and stability. The guarantee represented a level of support typically offered to Washington's closest allies. It came after Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu apologized to Qatari Emir Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani for a September 9th Israeli strike on his territory. The strike was targeted at Hamas, but killed one Qatari security official in the process. Qatar also was attacked by Iran in June in a strike targeted at its U.S. base. The order falls short of a NATO-style defense pact. It hasn't been ratified by the Senate, so it isn't binding. It came as Netanyahu and Trump, during a visit to the White House Monday, announced a 20-point plan to end the war in Gaza, brokered with Qatari mediation. Hamas has not yet accepted the plan. U.S. relations with Doha have come a long way since 2017, when Trump accused Qatar of harboring terrorism. The nation of Qatar, unfortunately, has historically been a funder of terrorism at a very high level, Trump said at the time. From there, Qatar became a major non-NATO ally to the U.S. in 2022 under President Joe Biden and is home to Al Udeid Air Base, one of the U.S. largest Middle East bases and a key hub for U.S. Central Command operations. The nation is now gifting the U.S. with a new plane to serve as Air Force One. Qatar welcomed the president's executive order in a statement saying it reflects the strong and long-standing ties between Doha and Washington. Qatar remains committed to working with the United States and international partners as a trusted mediator to address shared challenges, advance conflict resolution through diplomatic means, and support sustainable peace in the region, the statement said. A security guarantee has long been a goal for Qatar and other Gulf allies like Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates. The nation has hosted a Hamas political office since 2012, but local officials say they were asked to do so by the U.S. to establish a line of communication for negotiations. Before Qatar was involved in mediating the Gaza ceasefire, it was a bridge for U.S. and Taliban talks before the withdrawal in 2021, and has worked on prisoner exchanges between Russia and Ukraine. This year, it's been involved with the U.S. in working out a peace agreement between Rwanda and the Democratic Republic of Congo, signed at the White House in June.